Hi, I am Carolyn here with Knots of Ariadne.
And Marguerite de la Mer.
I am a Reiki master and life coach at Out of Ashes LC here in Omaha, Nebraska.
And I'm also a Reiki master, intuitive artist, and card reader.
And welcome to our podcast. Today we are talking about Reiki.
Reiki, I'm really excited about that given that we are both Reiki masters.
Yeah, that's why it was a perfect topic to cover today.
So, Kira, what is Reiki?
So, if you ask me,
Mm-hmm.
Reiki has two definitions. There is the more kind of spiritual definition, where we talk about being an open channel for God and angels to use to come through us to heal the body, to heal things going on within the body and align and open up the chakras and everything like that. I also have a scientific more approach to it that I
Mm-hmm.
share with people as well. And so for me, the other thing that I will tell people is we know that the body is made up of energy. We know that matter at its core, the protons, neutrons, electrons, are pure energy.
Mm-hmm.
Science has finally gotten to the point now where we've discovered, like, we know that, and we know that frequency or that energy is a frequency. It's not a solid form. And so things that we perceive as solid are not actually solid. And so when we are attuned to our Reiki placements, we are able to become sensitive enough to feel the difference in that frequency within the body and know where something is off that we need to shift back into a frequency of healing or frequency of homeostasis.
Because as we're talking about frequencies, I don't think we necessarily defined it in our other podcasts. So, frequencies, the theory is that there's different frequencies and they correspond with different emotions and states,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's a love frequency, that there's a healing frequency,
Yes.
and that there's higher frequencies and lower frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And an elevated frequency, from my understanding, things are moving faster,
Yeah.
and maybe a lower frequency is more material.
Yeah. It's going to be
Is what
slower
I
moving.
have learned.
Yeah. Yeah. And each of our chakras has a range of frequencies that when it's optimal, when it's in good health, it vibrates at that frequency. And it's when that frequency gets thrown off by things like illness or injury or um, emotional abuse, some sort of trauma that we go through, that then shifts that frequency to a different state that isn't ideal for our body. And if we leave it there for long enough, you'll start to see various illnesses and things manifest within the body. So, say you have a heartbreak because you have a loved one pass away, and you never fully go through those stages of grief, you may then manifest that in your heart center or your heart chakra, um, and that energy will start to shift to a different vibration, a different frequency, and then maybe 5, 10 years from now, you have high blood pressure, you have a heart attack, you have lung cancer, you have, something like that in that area come up and manifest in your body because you still haven't worked through the grief of that loss.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That makes perfect sense. And um, coming back. I was going to say, so I've had an aquarium before, and this talking about frequencies makes me think of kind of an ecosystem, like your body and your chakras and your soul all have these different frequencies, which maybe are also, maybe if we're talking in terms of code, maybe they're like pieces of code of who you are, pieces of who you are, and they all form the ecosystem of who you are. And if it's all balanced, then you're able to live a healthy life emotionally and physically. But if it is unbalanced, such as if you had an aquarium and the pH in the water would be imbalanced, your fish would start to die and be unhealthy. And so it's kind of, within your aura, within your body, having unbalanced frequencies or things like that will make it harder for you to thrive. And
yes.
Reiki.
And then that creates the blockages that Reiki can help you with moving the blockages out and realigning all of the energy so that it can flow through you evenly, freely where it needs to flow. And that energy, like, it has different names. We might call it chi. We might call it, life force energy. It's all the same thing.
So it reminds me also to go back to the fish metaphor, filtering the water in your fish tank.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to add certain drops of things to your fish tank to balance it because it
Yeah.
got out of balance. And that's a good way of explaining it, because some people might think, I need to get Reiki if something really bad is happening with me.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily
That's
the
not
case.
necessarily, yeah. I
It's
mean, because you
simply-
could walk out of your house and walk through a grocery store and pick up all kinds of stuff. And if you're not able to filter that out yourself, then, like you said, you might need to add something in to filter it out and clean it out, right?
So what kinds of stuff could we pick up that Reiki would help get rid of or cleanse or filter out?
I feel like just being around people who are very negative, like that bad attitude, that anger or sadness is typically going to be resonating at a lower frequency. And so it's kind of like when you walk into a room and you instantly feel the heaviness because somebody was just fighting, or you walk into a room where maybe you're going to a funeral and you walk into the viewing room for the visitation. I don't know about you, but I can feel a shift in the energy. It's like, it's very, it's just that very somber kind of feeling. And so, not that these emotions are bad, because we do go through them for a reason, but we don't want to live there. And so, just simply walking into the room, you can pick up that vibration, that frequency. And then, say you go home, and 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days later, you're still not able to shake it. You're still kind of feeling off. That may be sticking to you, and you haven't done enough to cleanse it.
And Reiki is a fabulous tool because a lot of empaths will, for the reason you just described, empaths are people who can feel things around them and the energy of others. They tend to close up and maybe interact less because they don't want to risk, if I'm going to talk with someone who's a little bit depressed, then I'm going to mirror them and feel depressed and I won't be able to shake it.
Yes.
But Reiki is a method by which you can learn to really filter that out really quickly, transmute it really quickly, and be able to go on with your day and actually become a healer.
Yeah.
So,
Do some self-healing.
So Reiki, just short history, originated in Japan. There's Usui Reiki, and the founder of that is Usui Sensei, or Mikao Usui. He developed his Reiki healing system over time, and mostly in the 1920s is when he developed it the most. You can find all kinds of information about the more formal history of Reiki on a website that I'm a member of, the International Center for Reiki. A lot of us get our materials from there. It's a reputable website to go to for that, and there's a bunch of testimonials. But the main point, the main definition to me is also in the name, the Rei and the Ki. So the Rei is the light from above. So it's the light from ascended masters, the lights from the 12th heaven, the highest level of light that comes down, that is outside of our world and comes down to heal us. For some, the Holy Spirit. And Ki is life force energy within the earth and within us. And the theory is that everything around us has its own Ki, so its own frequency, its own characteristics, its own life force. And the Rei and Ki together heal us. And so what was your first experience with Reiki, Kira?
My first, so the very, very, very first one was in college in a yoga class where the instructor taught us a little bit of self-Reiki, which is what you learn in that first level of Reiki. And then I really didn't have any interaction with it for many, many years after that. And when I moved to this area from another part of the state, I started going to a massage therapist who also did Reiki. And one day I was like, hey, let's add this on, let's check it out, let's try it. And after going to her for quite some time, I decided I wanted to do it. I want to do the Reiki as well. And I took my level 1 class with her. And I think even before that, I had somebody from church who came and she was like, I need to do Reiki on you. And I didn't know at the time, like she also does the Usui style, because there are many, many styles of Reiki. But she came and did an hour-long session on me one day. And I just remember this feeling like none other. Like I never felt it in that way when I would get it done with my massage. And it felt like I was floating. It felt like there was people working on me. It felt like, I don't know, just very like freeing and liberating. And I had all kinds of visions and stuff come through me.
Visions. And it's the laying of the hands.
Yeah.
For our listeners. So Reiki is administered through the laying of the hands with someone either laying down or sitting, but they don't necessarily have to put their hands on you.
No.
Though a lot of them do, but
yeah, I always ask my clients first, are you okay with me touching you? Because we can work in the aura. We don't have to actually lay hands, but that's part of it, is like to lay hands. And so it works best when we're able to place our hands on the body and work directly with those energy centers, but it's not necessary. And so, yeah, and then I got my level 1 and eventually my level 2, and now I'm a master. So what was your first experience with Reiki?
I think I talked about it in the podcast about our awakening. I got a Reiki session done by someone who was a student and who had just been attuned, and it was life-changing in that she did something on my throat chakra, which is where you speak your truth. And after she did that, there's a bunch of things about my life that I finally just admitted to myself. I made a bunch of changes in my life after that, and then I decided I need to continue to develop this. I went and got a session done with Diane Harris here in town, and same as you, I had many visions during the session. I actually astral traveled during the session with her, and I had visions of Jesus Christ. I went out into outer space. I saw, like my origin. It was just a crazy vision that made me feel like I had never felt before. It felt really real. When she was done with the session, I was crying, and I decided I need to learn about this. So I got level 1, level 2, and level 3, and started practicing on other people. But it's interesting that we're talking about these visions, because that's not the primary objective of Reiki.
No. I think for some people, they are just so ready to travel and to see, like they're open to seeing it. And so they do have those experiences. But a lot of people, it's just very calming and kind of meditative session. Some people fall asleep, which is totally fine, because when you're asleep, you are probably the most open to receiving the healing and receiving the balance of everything. And what else have they told you that any of your clients experienced?
Well, I always tell them they're going to experience healing and relaxation. That's the only thing I really sell, because that's for sure going to happen. The other things that might happen, such as seeing different shapes and colors, those happen because you're maybe clearing their third eye, and they have a gift that they can finally use, because that area was blocked before, so now it's open. And that happens a lot if I do a meditation before the session, where I ask them to visualize the shape of things leaving their body, because visualization helps. It helps move it along as well. So the primary objective is to really get energies moving, heal, put you at a healing frequency, fill you with white light, remove things that no longer need to be there, and replace that gap with white light or healing energy. but it can also open up gifts that have been shut down.
Yeah. And some people who have a lot of pain will experience at least temporary pain relief as well. They use it now, they use one form of Reiki in the hospitals where they will use it on surgery patients, and they find higher rates of recovery, or faster rates of recovery rather, in the surgery patients. They also find that they require less pain meds because of how it helps them to manage the pain and to move through the pain. And then in cancer patients, it's been used to help with that process as well. And they find that the cancer patients will have higher levels of remission, and they will have fewer symptoms or side effects from the other types of therapies that they're receiving.
And so what you're talking about is healing touch. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
That one
yes,
that
so
is.
that specific branch is what's typically used in the hospital.
And that, to get licensed with that, is how many years? What is the process?
So they have levels just like in Usui. They have 7 levels if you want to submit to insurance, is what I read. And so you typically go and get your first 4, which is kind of like the basic 1 through masters in Usui. And then once you get past that, then you can go for 5, 6, 7 to be able to like submit to insurance and do all the other stuff with the hospitals and that type of thing. Timing wise, I feel like it's been a while since I looked into it. It's like 2 to 3 year process, depending on how much time, because you have to see a certain number of patients in between some of those levels as well, which is the same with Usui. Between your level 2 and your masters, usually they want you waiting at least 6 months so that you can spend a certain amount of time working with clients and building your gift and building your practice.
So similar. So we're Reiki masters. We're not healing touch certified right now.
No.
But they're both Reiki.
Yeah.
Have similar principles, and our certification process, mine took about 2 years, but I think it can be shorter if someone is accelerating. 1 and 2, there's time between those 2 certifications, but some people take them at the same time.
Yep.
And let's talk about that training and what it means, because we're talking about the laying of hands, which everyone can do. So what happens in the training, and what happens between the master and the student for them to receive this energy and be able to give it to other people?
So the master is going to pass down the attunement or the placement to the student. And so it's a practice that is passed down, and it's held very sacred and guarded. And so at each level, you're going to receive a different attunement, and you're going to receive some symbols. And these specific symbols are sacred symbols that were given that channel the energy in different ways when we use them. And so you'll get some in level 1, some in level 2, and then you get more in masters. And once you learn how to use these symbols and where to place your hands, then that's when you start activating the channel within you, and you get the energy flowing through you that you can work with your clients on.
Yes. And the symbols, as you mentioned, they're sacred, they're protected, and they're given to people during their attunement. The attunement is the process where you go through a meditation, and the teacher passes that energy down to you that they have received.
Yeah. Well, and now they actually say it doesn't come through the teacher, it comes from God's source directly. And so it used to be that it had to come from a teacher, but then those teachers kind of become like the gatekeeper. And so now what we go through in the books, the teacher may start like a guided meditation or a visualized meditation, but then it moves you into a state where you are open and everything comes directly from God's source. And so the teacher is more of a guide as opposed to the person who's actually doing the placement. which is how it used to be. And so that has kind of shifted a little too.
So it's almost as simple, the way you're describing it, it's almost as simple as presenting yourself to God or the universe through your teacher and saying, I'm ready. I'm ready to receive my next gift so that I can heal people.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the teacher just really teaches you how to use it ethically.
How to use it ethically.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what how you are to use this gift so that it's not being used the wrong way.
The wrong way, because there's certainly energy healing is for the purpose, for the higher purpose, and that's what we're learning in Reiki. But there's certainly energy manipulation and sorcery that can happen with the same type of knowledge. So what are the ethics then behind Reiki?
So Reiki, you're only going to give it to people who are open to receiving it. So when somebody comes to you or when you want to do Reiki, you first need to ask, is it okay if I give this to you, if I do this for you? If you're doing it for somebody who like can't answer or anything like that, you can always go to your spirit guides or pray about it and say, this person is in a coma, or this country is under turmoil, or this group of people are going through this. You can send it to any space and time and any group of person. You can give Reiki to your plant, your water. Like there's so much
your
things
food,
that you can do
your
with
past
Reiki.
Self,
yeah,
your future self.
And so there are times when you can't be like, hey, are you open to receiving Reiki? And in those circumstances, you can simply pray about it and ask, like, is it okay if I give Reiki to this person or to this thing? But always, always, always ask first, because they need to be ready to let go of that too. Because if they're not ready to let go of that and you bring it up and they've kind of buried it under a bunch of scar tissue and oak that they don't want to deal with, that can create other problems, other hiccups in their life where now they have to deal with that, and maybe they're not ready to, which can trigger other emotional breakdowns and stuff like that. So always, always, always ask before you give it, is it okay if I do this? And honor, their decision. And then always do it with the highest light. Like you want to make sure that you are channeling from God's source, that you are honoring God and this gift that He has given you in doing it. And so, like, thank you, giving gratitude for being able to be this channel open and do this work.
Yeah, so it's not your own will. You're supposed to put your own will aside and be a complete channel for the light, the source light, for God coming down and acting through you to heal this person or yourself, if you're doing it on yourself. And you mentioned something about like emotional breakdowns possibly, and that is because and I personally have cried a lot during Reiki sessions or after them, because you are unearthing deeply buried emotions. And during a Reiki session, someone can remember like some painful moments that they haven't dealt with yet and that are needing to be released. So those will come up, they'll come up in that person's mind, and that person needs to be ready to let them go. And if they're not ready to let them go, bringing that up for them to process may not be helpful. Exactly. So yes, if I'm grieving due to an abusive relationship and I go through Reiki, that I will see maybe some of those feelings again and have to let them go. And that is why we ask and make sure the person is ready. That's why also, even if a client comes to me for healing, and I will do my best to heal them, but I will stop at one point if I'm understanding that this person is not ready to dive, or this is enough for today. They're not ready to dive into this. And that is also why we have the levels when we're becoming masters, why we have the levels in the different attunements, because you need time to heal yourself, to integrate the new energy and the new gifts that are being given to you, and to also heal yourself and process things so that you can heal others. And that takes time. Was there anything for you that came up when you were learning Reiki that was difficult to let go, and how did you let go of it?
So I'm an Aquarius, and honestly, like, I kind of am very airy and detached to begin with, so I don't hold on to a whole lot. I think when I was going through my Reiki, a lot of what probably stood out to me the most as the strongest things to let go of was just this ideal of I have to do everything, I have to be perfect, I have to handle everything, like that control factor. And learning how to be at peace with the fact that I don't have to be in control. And so I've been through a lot with my children because I have two children with special needs. And I know when I started my Reiki journey was kind of at not quite the top of the hill with some of what I was working with or dealing with then, but on the downhill slide. And so I was ready to start working through and letting go of it. But that would probably be the biggest thing that I had to deal with is just releasing this idea that I have to be this perfect person and I have to be everything and I have to do this and just that control factor for sure. Yeah. And I don't remember ever like really crying.
Really?
Like, you were talking about that, and I'm like,
cry so much.
I don't think I really cried during Reiki.
But maybe you have a different way of processing.
But yeah, I do. Like, in general in my life, like, crying is hard for me, and it's not like it's not that I'm like purposely holding it back. It's just like I feel like I should be crying, but I'm not, and I don't know why. I tend to laugh when I get really nervous, a lot. So that might come out that way. I release a lot through anger, like screaming.
Yeah,
like,
I've done that too.
You know, in some relationships it was at people. Now that I'm grown and learned the proper way to release, now it's maybe into a pillow or something, you know. But just getting that out of me. But that doesn't have to do with Reiki. I'm sorry.
But so we're talking about a lot of our own emotions right now that we release during Reiki. So it's important to understand that Reiki can help with different types of heaviness. One of them is linked to our own emotions and experiences that are stored in our body, like resentment or anger or bitterness, or sadness that gets stored and stuck somewhere, or fear. The other ones could be, we've also talked about when we're taking Reiki about attachments. And so that is considered a foreign spiritual body that is attached to a person.
Has attached to
a person. It's like a parasitic type of thing.
Yes, that's going to drain your energy, cause you to get off balance. And so if that happens, then we can use Reiki to detach that, transmute that, so that it doesn't affect other people as much as possible. Now, they may have multiple parts of themselves. Like, we know a friend who explains it as a Horcrux if you are from the world of Harry Potter. But yes, and so we can use that to release that and transmute it so that it's no longer sucking on you, and using your life force.
That's probably a whole nother podcast about what types of attachments people could have.
Yes. And you don't learn that till masters. Like, you have to be ready for that.
But the idea that I've learned is that you can weigh yourself down or spiritually injure yourself through storing heavy emotions within yourself and not releasing them, and that creates a weakness by which you can get some type of spiritual parasite. Or, it could be linked to a lot of different things. But the point being is that Reiki can help with both of those items.
Yes.
So it's very useful in that aspect. And you mentioned transmutation. So we talked a little bit about detaching. But then there's also transmutation, which is once you have removed the heavy energy from the person, where does it go? What happens to it? It needs to be transformed into something else. And a lot of times when I do my practice, I have an altar where I create a path to the white light so that it can be taken up by heaven. But what I've also learned is that some types of energy needs to go in the ground. So I have a lot of earth elements on my altar, and I also, once I am done with a client, I go out to stand on the ground so that any energies that like, you know, found refuge with me can go down into the ground, because if you are practicing on other people, some of their energies might find refuge in you and say, okay, you're a healer, I'm just gonna hitch a ride.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
So you need to take those and you need to put them in the ground or in the light.
You can also use water. I have seen a couple of different people actually use water in their practice, where they may just have a bowl or some type of vessel of water there. They may actually like put their hands after the Reiki or during the Reiki session in the water, like as if they're kind of like cleansing it off. Or I know you've done sessions where you actually had your clients, did they put their hands in the water? Or they just put the flower things?
Because I like to get my clients explicit consent to release things before they start.
Okay, that's
so right. I make them an active participant by having them take a herb and smash it up and put it in water and say that they're ready to release whatever doesn't serve them.
Yeah.
And that also creates a path between them and the water, so that it can go there and the water can help. Transform.
I've seen one practitioner where she will have her clients like kind of just like dip their fingers in the water and do it that way too.
That's a good solution.
Water is another earth element that can be used to transmute that energy if necessary. So
yes, what stood out for me when I learned Reiki was, so prior my education was very much Judeo-Christian education. And we grow up thinking about the spiritual world as like this binary world that is in conflict. Like there is like angels and demons and they're fighting, and there's good guys and bad guys, and there's light and dark. And but what you learn with Reiki is that it maybe sometimes there could be a conflict between two energies, but most of the time we're just trying to balance things out, and we're not trying to if there's a struggle or fight, the person is just not ready to release it, and so there's no point. There's no fighting. There's gentle healing. And when something is released, it's not that bad thing needs to be put in the depths of hell. It's that thing needs to be put where it belongs, which is washed and cleansed and given to the heavens, or put back into the earth so that it can be recycled into something new. So it's a different philosophy. It's a philosophy of balance and interconnectedness. And I like it a lot better. It's a lot more freeing to me. So we have done, we've had several Reiki sessions, and we've given Reiki sessions. Is there one that was particularly memorable for you?
Oh, my most memorable sessions that I've had have always been the ones where spirit comes in. Like there was one time I remember laying on the table, and suddenly there was a spirit right next to my face on the left-hand side, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "This is not your time. You need to go." So that can happen, like if you know you're a medium or you know that you're sensitive to spirits. It can put you into a relaxed state where if you haven't set that boundary, which at that point I had not, that it can open you up to other dimensions or other levels for that to come in. So that was really great, because there was a few spirits that came in that session, and I remember my practitioner, the same one that you went to, she was just a little weirded out by it, I think, especially when they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" she stopped and was like, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Yep." Sure did. So that one was always like one that I think about as very memorable.
I think what's memorable for me is when I start getting in a flow and practicing Reiki on someone, and I almost go into this other state where I'm in like and hearing people talking in another room about, oh, you should go focus on their knee. Their knee has something. Oh yeah, that's working out great. Yeah, go here, do that.
Yeah.
And it's the mediumship skill kind of kick in, and I start to hear conversations about the person while I'm doing Reiki, and it helps me in the healing. And if there's any information that is delivered during it, I'll give it to the person.
Yeah.
That's what makes them memorable.
Yeah.
To me.
And I love the validation, how when you're going through a person and you're scanning and you're doing the Reiki in the different areas, for me, I typically, sometimes I'll ask, like, do you have a specific area that's causing you trouble that you want me to focus on? But a lot of the times I just go in and I do what we call a voice and scan. And basically we just scan through all the energy in the body to see, like, overall, you know, where do we need to go? And so then we begin, and I will go to specific areas where they have had an injury, or they're having pain, or they're having something happening within their body, and it just blows them away that I actually am able to pick up on it. I mean, to me, I'm like, yes, like, I've seen it, like, I know this works, but it blows them away to see that I actually picked up on that. And then I love the validation it gives me, knowing, like, yes, I did pick up on the right thing, and I did feel this, and this is a real thing. Because, like, it still blows my mind sometimes that I can do this and pick up on this, like, wow, that just happened.
And I'll do the voice and scan as well. It's where we put our hand over the person and we feel if there's a shift somewhere. It feels different. If it, like, our hand can be hot or cold or tingly differently in one area of the body, and we know that there's something to focus on. But I'll just get visuals, really, and it happens even when I haven't really scanned the person yet. I'll see, like, a glimpse of something. Oh, we need to focus there. It's very visual for me.
Yeah. And everybody has their own gifts. I've always known that my clairsentience was the strongest. Like, I've always felt that. And so that would make sense that, like, for me, I have to feel it. And you've always seemed to be very clairvoyant. Yeah, very clairvoyant. And so that would make a lot of sense that they would show it to you visually instead. Yeah. And when you go through this Reiki practice, like, if you're not sure what your gift is, they will definitely show you what your gift is.
Will know. And you do not have to be using any of those gifts to actually practice Reiki. You can just go through the method that is taught to you, and it will still be effective.
Yes.
That's what I learned too. If you're having an off day and you just do your method, do your Gassho prayer, repeat, the Reiki philosophy, which we haven't gone through yet. It's don't be angry just for today. Don't be angry, don't be grievous. Be thankful, be diligent, or work hard is another one they say, and be kind to others. So embodying that philosophy, doing your prayer, clearing your aura before you begin, and going through the method.
Yeah.
Just do that. Even if you're not visualizing, even if you're not feeling everything intuitively, it will come eventually.
It's still opening up the channel.
It's still healing the person, and it's still healing you. So for the tool of the day.
Yes, for the tool of the day, we wanted to talk about healing hands. So everybody has the ability to work with the energy within their body, whether you have the symbols or not, or the attunement or not. And if you think about it, this is something that we instinctively do, even since we are children. If we fall down and scrape our knee, what's the first thing we do? We put our hands over our knee. If we get hit, what do? We put our hand over the spot where we got hit.
If your tummy hurts, you hold your tummy.
You hold your tummy. And so it's something that we already instinctively do without realizing that we are activating this within ourselves to give ourselves self-healing. And so if you have something weighing on you, or if you have an injury, you can use your hands to place it on that spot and bring that into you and be able to activate that own energy within you without even going through all of this.
Yes.
It may take practice. It will likely take practice. It is instinctive though. So eventually you should start to notice the difference, I would think, and see the shift in the energy as you grow stronger in that. So
yeah, here's kind of the dichotomy with being a Reiki master is Reiki is helpful. Going through the attunements is very helpful. Receiving, the education is very helpful. But it's also energy that comes from source, which is accessible to every human.
To everybody. Yeah.
So even if you're not able to take the training, you could theoretically get to a very, very high level of being able to do this on your own. It will take some meditation, but so if you cannot afford taking classes, you could start with simply healing touch for yourself, putting your hands on yourself. I'd advise also even lifting your hands in the air to God, to source, and asking, please bless my hands, and then put them on you. There are so many, there's magic within you, is what we were saying.
Yes. We all have our own little magic.
And we all know that human touch is healing by nature for humans. There's many studies that have been done on how hugs heal wounds. People who have even little boo-boos will heal quicker if they get hugs. So human touch is one of the most healing things in the world for us. And so since we're talking about healing, our person of the day is Archangel Raphael. And Archangel Raphael, I always call upon him to heal the heart because he is characterized by color green, which is the color of the heart chakra, and he is a healer of the mind, body, and spirit. He is often represented with a staff or a trumpet. I read also somewhere he's represented also sometimes on a fish, but I don't know why, so you'll have to look that one up. And he is also the patron of travelers, of the blind, medical workers, and of matchmakers. So he covers a lot of
different areas.
But a very powerful angel. And when I think of Raphael versus Michael, so Archangel Michael, I feel like he'll go into battle. I feel like we need him when there's like a big
guard
conflict type of thing. But for Raphael, I feel it's a more like kind of gentle, emotional healing. It's a little bit different energy.
And with that is the end of our episode. This is a little longer one for you guys. But we had a lot to cover with the Reiki, so we hope this was beneficial for you. If you would like to book a Reiki session with us, you can do so with me at my website, outofasheslc.com, or
on my Instagram, you can find links to book with me, Marguerite de la Mer.
We can do those long distance wise. That's the nice thing with energy, is we can affect energy from a distance, or we can do it locally if you are here local in the Omaha area. And so
thank you so much.
A wrap. Thank you. Come back in 2 weeks for our next episode.